Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending GreenPath Financial Wellness Webinar, your financial wellness checkup, review, adjust, succeed. GreenPath is a trusted national nonprofit housing and financial credit counseling agency with the mission of empowering people to lead financially healthy lives. We started as a budgeting service with the Michigan Credit Union League in 1961 and grew into a nationwide financial wellness organization. We counsel in all 50 states and Puerto Rico, and we believe that financial education is something we should all continue to engage with, regardless of how much we already know. There's always something we can learn to help maintain or improve our financial wellness. And today, as I said, we're going to talk about our topic, your financial wellness checkup. My name is Dawn Watson. I am a partner experience manager with GreenPath Financial Wellness. I've been with GreenPath for over 30 years. I've had the pleasure of working with many families on their financial wellness journey, and I'm looking forward to talking with you today about this topic. And I am also here with my colleague, Jim. Jim, would you like to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Thanks, Don. My name is Jim Beaver. I'm a partner experience manager with GreenPath as well. Coming in just over 10 years here with GreenPath. And most of that time counseling, working with a lot of people on a lot of different financial scenarios. Looking forward to this.
Hey, thanks, Jim. I mean, it is hard to believe how fast this year has gone by. GreenPath is here to help you prepare for the successful end of the year by helping you with your mid-year financial checkup. Today, we're going to start by discussing your financial awareness and mindset. Then we'll discuss goal setting and budgeting. We'll take some time to review other areas besides your spending plan everyone should invest time in. And lastly, we'll wrap up with some resources and action items.
All
Jim,
right.
do you want to take
Let's get started. Let's talk about financial awareness and mindset. I always like to start with the definition. Of course, financial awareness is recognizing and understanding your patterns, habits, and even those emotional triggers. It's important to note here, it's not just what we do, but the underlying reasons for why we do these things. Now, a financial mindset is made up of your core beliefs, attitudes, emotional patterns about money. Whether consciously or unconsciously, these shape every decision you make. From impulse buys to long-term planning, by understanding your mindset, you can begin to uncover why you spend, save, or avoid finances altogether. And once you're aware of it, you can begin to shift and flex between mindsets as needed. There are several mindsets, but we've basically put them in three categories here. The first one is security oriented. It's kind of rooted in the desire for protection and predictability. People with this mindset often prioritize protecting what they have and avoiding financial risk. One thing I want to point out when we talk about the mindsets, a lot of times it's easier to recognize this with other people, that they behave these ways and not so much ourselves. You do have questions about your own. Maybe you ask family or friends, hey, which of these do you think I fit into? But when you talk about security mindset, when you think about that, the good of this, yes, sometimes it creates that strong foundation, but it can also lead to hesitation when faced with growth opportunities or investment decisions. The challenge isn't always lack of resources. A lot of times it's trusting that risk is worth the potential reward. The next mindset is growth and empowerment. People in this see money as a tool for progress and they see potential. Individuals with this are forward thinking, they're optimistic, proactive, and a lot of times open to learning. They tend to invest in their own development, embrace change, and make choices with long-term success in mind. Instead of avoiding challenges, they lean into them with the belief that that improvement is always within reach and always worth it. Many times we see this with a very high level of energy, which can be great for staying motivated, but sometimes it can also lead to like an overcommitment of resources like time or money. They get overextended and they don't realize the risks that they're taking. The third mindset we'll discuss today is status and identity. And individuals with this mindset often seek recognition. They want people to see how they're doing. They want that self-image. And it can be a powerful motivator, makes them very ambitious. They have that desire to succeed. The risk with that is maybe overspending or chasing that status for approval from others. Awareness here is key. When identity is tied to wealth, it's easier to lose sight of what truly brings happiness.
Thanks, Jim. I definitely can see changes in my mindset over time. For sure. I can see that. I'm sure other people could probably see even more. Thank you for that. Now let's pivot and discuss setting goals and creating a spending plan to help you actually reach them. First step is to be sure to include all and any financial partners in your goal setting and budgeting. Ensure everyone has a say in what you're working towards and everyone agrees on the priorities and how you're going to work towards them. Let's start out talking about goals. We want to be sure any goal that is created is considered what we call a SMART goal. You might be asking, well, what is that? And if you are, I'm glad that you asked. Essentially, the first step in creating a SMART goal is to ensure that it is specific. Just saying, I want to save money is good, but not very specific. Why are you saving money? Is it for retirement, to buy a car, down payment on a house, or to take a vacation? Next, how are you going to measure your progress? Find a way to track it, make sure that you continuously track it. Maybe consider setting up separate savings accounts so you can make sure that the money goes in there. It's specifically intended for whatever the goal is, and it'll be easy for you to measure that. Be sure your goal is realistic and attainable within the resources and time that you have given to achieve it. If it's unattainable, you're going to get frustrated and you're probably going to start questioning, why am I even doing this? Be sure the goal is relevant to you and your financial partner. Don't get caught up in what your family and friends are doing. These are your goals. Make sure that they're important to you. And finally, make sure you have a defined time frame of completion. This will help you with planning and have something to really look forward to. So that you know what to include to make it a SMART goal, you'll want to focus on both short-term and long-term goals. Short-term goal is something that can be achieved pretty quickly, usually within a year or less. It could be something like, I want to save $2,000 to take my family on a vacation next July. You would start to save $167. You know what the goal is, you know what the time frame is, it feels achievable within your means, you know how much you need to set aside. This is a way to actually create that SMART goal for something that you're trying to work towards. Now, you can also have long-term goals like saving for that down payment on a house, saving to purchase a new to you car, savings for retirement. It is not uncommon to have more than one goal you plan to work on. I know in our family, we're working on a couple short-term goals. One is our last child, adult child, is getting ready to move out of the house. We want to be able to support him in that process. We're also working on a deck rebuild, and that is almost completed. And then our family and my husband, it's closer to retirement. That is our long-term goal that we're working towards. One tip I would suggest, once you have your goals and know your budget can support them, automate the savings. Make it as easy as you can for yourself. Direct deposit to specific savings accounts, or see if you can have it transferred to the savings on your pay date if you can't direct deposit into multiple accounts from your employer. Now that you have your goals, let's start to create your budget or spending plan to see if all of your goals can realistically fit in your budget or if you may need to make some adjustments. Gather all of your income information from each and every source. You want to determine what you have to work with after all deductions are taken out of the paycheck. If your income does vary a lot, be sure to review your income over a longer period of time to determine the lows and the highs that you can figure out kind of where that average might be. Ideally, we would want to create the budget based on consistent income. If you do things like side work overtime occasionally, that income is great to help you achieve those goals faster. But unreliable income to cover your day-to-day expenses may make it a little bit more challenging to make sure that you're following that spending plan. Next, gather all of your bank statements and creditor statements. This will help you determine how much is going out to the expenses every single month. Have all your documentation. Start with your fixed expenses. These are items that really don't fluctuate month to month. This could probably include your mortgage or rent payment, vehicle loan payments, your insurance premiums, any type of installment loans. If you have revolving debt payments like your credit cards, determine what you must pay each month. If it is a goal to get out of debt, we're going to talk about that later and how to be able to work that into that spending plan, but at least ensure that you're covering the minimum monthly payments every month. Then we have our variable expenses. These are items that you spend money on regularly, but the amount may fluctuate. This would include things like your groceries, probably your utilities, especially right now. We're experiencing a heat wave, and I know my utility bill is substantially higher than it typically is. Gas for your car, dining out, entertainment, clothes, personal care items. Be sure to, again, review what the average is over the course of several months to get a better idea of what you might actually be spending on a fairly regular basis. Of course, we likely spend more money during December when we're celebrating the holidays. or possibly during the summer when our kiddos are home from school. You want to make sure that you're looking at some of those unusual months where you might have different expenditures going out. And then finally, determine what your periodic expenses that you have. And these are items that will come up occasionally, but we don't spend money on them every month. This could include your car or home maintenance, gifts, property taxes if they're not part of your mortgage payment, back to school shopping. I'm sure those that have kiddos are already thinking about that. If you go into any store, you're going to see all that stuff right there, front and center. This is like another good periodic expense that if you have children, you're going to have. Whatever you've previously spent, if you can go back and gauge what that number looks like, you can take that annual amount, assume that, if you want to increase it slightly, if things are going to be more expensive or the kids are getting older and you're going to have more expensive clothes to purchase. But whatever that dollar amount is that you're going to estimate for that periodic expense, divide it by 12, and then factor that amount into the budget. Now it's time to put it all together. Take your income, subtract all of your bills and expenses, determine if there is money left over to factor in the goals that you created. If not, determine if there is an ability to increase your income or other ways to reduce expenses. You may also need to consider adjusting a goal to make it more attainable. Again, we don't want to set something that isn't attainable because, like I said earlier, you're likely going to get frustrated and may just give up. If you're thinking about the expenses that you may be able to adjust, have you ever noticed a lot of the items that we spend money on, which may not absolutely be mandatory, to start with the letter C? If you have, we would love to hear some of the C's that you have, but some of the C's that we see often are things like your convenience store purchases. Think about stopping at the gas station on your way to work, just grabbing a beverage on your way. Carry out food. I know that we're really guilty. I was guilty of it last night. I will confess. I was tired. I didn't want to cook. I had one of my kids home. He stopped by to visit. We got carry out. But for a lot of people, prep time and that can be difficult if you are running errands after work or your kids are involved in sports. It can be hard to get that done. Also think about the coffee that you may be buying on your way to work at that local cafe or the place that you like to pick it up at. Is there a way to possibly bring a coffee maker with you to work and make it there instead of doing that? Also think about your cinema. Movie doesn't start with a C, so we're going to say cinema. You're going to go, you're going to pay the fee to watch it. You're going to buy probably some snack, but consider maybe waiting for this to release or end up on a streaming service. You can save some money there. And if you haven't cut the cord on your cable, consider doing that and using the streaming service to save some money. So I'm just curious if anybody has thought of additional. I see there's some that have been put into the chat. I love that when somebody said children, that is true. If you're taking your kids with you to the store, really set boundaries. Make sure that they're aware that it's not a free-for-all at the store when you're walking through the various aisles. Somebody else put cell phone. Yep. Have you go in and you're like, they want to sell you the new phone, even if you don't really need a phone, or the add-ons to the phone. I have an Apple product and they was like, oh, well, we've got this package where you can get Amazon or your Apple Music and Apple Arcade and you can get this. And the next thing you know, you're spending money that you really hadn't intended to spend. I'm guilty of that one as well. Yeah, somebody put in the chat that they've spent a lot of money switching to YouTube TV from DirecTV. I just did that. My DirecTV was way more than that, and we just switched, and it's been fantastic. I totally agree with that. Thank you for sharing that. To help build a spending plan, we do have a budgeting worksheet and a guide on how to ensure you're aligning your priorities with your budget. You can scan that QR code. As I said, keep those phones handy.
Children and cookies seem to be the two C's for us. We'll get rolling here into our financial health checkup. The first of these is savings. There are a lot of different types of savings, but savings is the foundation of any healthy financial plan. While there's no one-size-fits-all solution, there are options that may fit you. And so I do want to point out there's several things here, and some of them you might be like, hey, you know what? I only need one or two of these. For some of you, you might be like, hey, I use all of these. But when you think general savings, that's kind of your go-to for short-term goals or everyday savings habits. Emergency savings is your safety net. This is for life surprises. Many people recommend 3 to 6 months of expenses here, but it's really up to your personal preference. Money market accounts, I like to call these a savings account on steroids. Usually pays out a higher interest rate or higher dividend rate than a general savings account, but may also have a higher minimum required balance. Share certificates or CDs, these accounts are time locked, meaning you're committing to not needing it for a period of time, usually a minimum of 6 months. And if you pull the money early, there could be penalties associated with that. Be comfortable with, with the previous accounts before funding share certificates or CDs. Sinking funds are kind of I think of them as a budgeting secret weapon. They're targeted savings buckets for known future expenses, vacations, holidays, basically expenses that aren't occurring each month, but you want to be prepared for. Each of these saving strategies supports a different part of the financial journey. The more intentional you are, the more resilient and prepared you'll be. Next up in our financial wellness review, we'll talk a little bit about debt. It's not just about what you owe, but it's understanding the shape and impact of your obligations. So start by itemizing each debt type. With these, you'll want to know where you stand and what you are paying. Consider interest rates, terms, whether the debt is secured or unsecured, and then make a plan for your debt. If you have a goal to reduce your debt, think about ways to do that and find ways to keep yourself motivated. Some options for paying down debt: you could do the debt snowball strategy. Basically, with the snowball strategy, you're prioritizing the lowest debt first. Any extra money goes to the lowest balance. And as items pay off, you work your way up to the bigger balances. That's debt snowball. The alternative to that is the debt avalanche strategy. The debt avalanche strategy prioritizes the highest interest rate first. And then once that pays off, you're stepping down into the lower interest rate debt. It's important to note here, you may want to start with one of these strategies and then modify for other factors, maybe interest or balance or the terms of the loan. Maybe there's an interest balloon on it. Those are some strategies for paying down the debt. You may also want to check with your creditors to see if they'll modify the debt or if they'll consider any type of hardship programs for you. At GreenPath, we have a debt management program that can be helpful for unsecured debt. Basically, as you pay us, we turn around, we're paying the creditors each month. We get concessions for lower interest rates and lower payments. Debt is paid off in less than 5 years. If that is something you're considering, give our counselors a call if you think that would be helpful for you. Next, we'll talk about taxes. Where do you stand at tax time? If you're getting a large refund, would you benefit from having that money throughout the year instead? If you owe money, look at options with your withholdings and other actions that may be able to reduce that obligation. You may want to talk with a tax professional for their recommendation. They might be able to advise you on your deductions as well. Basically answering the question, are you better off taking the standard deduction or itemizing deductions each year? I do want to point out here, there are some savings tools that can be used as well. Health savings account, college saving 529 programs, 401k, IRA, 401k and IRA contributions could also help reduce your tax burden. Next, we'll talk about the insurance piece. When we think home, we think homeowners or renters insurance or fire insurance, auto insurance, all of your vehicles and the drivers that are in your household. Life insurance is an option here. Life insurance kind of steps in for your loved ones if something happens to you. You can explore whole life versus term life policies. There's also health insurance options, protecting against those overwhelming medical costs. Disability insurance supports you if injury or illness limits your ability to earn income. It's probably the most overlooked, but could be incredibly valuable. You may get life, health, and disability insurance through your employer, but be aware these coverages may end if you leave your job. Many insurance reps will be happy to meet with you, usually annually, to discuss your coverage for life's unexpected moments. Next, we're going to talk about credit. We encourage you to review your credit at least once each year. There are 3 main credit bureaus, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. You can review all 3 credit reports through annualcreditreport.com. That is free. Right now, you can review them weekly for free. Now, if you want to get a score, see a score, they're going to charge you for that, but you can see the data on there for free. When reviewing, look for inaccuracies in the data. Personally, I have a wrong middle initial as an alias on my credit report, and it's inaccurate. And so I know it's there. It's something that I could request to be fixed. If you do find those issues, you can file disputes or ask for corrections. You can even add a statement explaining the event. Hey, there was identity theft. When reviewing the credit, the data is the most important piece. A lot of times we get confused or get lost in the scores. There are 2 main scoring models, FICO and Vantage, and each of them have multiple scoring models. Your scores will vary based on the scoring model that is used. Generally, the biggest priorities for credit are going to be on-time payments, balance versus available credit, length of credit history, and mix of credit and new credit. Those are the things to watch for on that. Getting into estate planning. When you think about estate planning, sometimes it's complex or intimidating, but it's essential for making sure your wishes are honored. First, we'll talk about wills and trusts. A will outlines how your assets should be distributed after your death and who will care for any minor children. A trust typically offers greater control over how and when assets are passed on and can help avoid probate. You'll want to consult an estate attorney to find out what will be right for you. The executor is the person you designate to carry out your will. They manage the estate, pay debt, taxes, and ensure everything goes according to plan. Choosing someone trustworthy and capable is key. Some people use an attorney, while others may choose a trusted friend or family member. Then we'll move on to power of attorney. Typically, two types of power of attorney. The first one, medical power of attorney, giving someone the authority to make healthcare decisions if you're unable to. The next one's financial power of attorney, assigning someone to handle any of your financial matters. That could be paying bills to maybe even managing investments on your behalf. Putting these pieces in place isn't just about preparing for death, it's about protecting your future, ensuring your voice is heard, and making life easier for those that you care about. Getting all of this together, sometimes it seems difficult. And I'll admit, personally, this was probably the hardest thing for me to get done, was to get it all set up. But once it was done, then each year, it's just a quick review to make sure that things haven't changed. Next, I like to look at the retirement. There's 401k and 403bs. These are employee-sponsored retirement accounts. Contributions are often pre-tax, and some even come with company matches. IRAs usually come in two flavors there. Traditional and Roth. A traditional IRA lets you contribute pre-tax dollars and pay tax later in retirement. A Roth IRA uses post-tax contributions, but qualified withdrawals are tax-free. A great option if you expect to be in a higher tax bracket later on in life. Pensions and annuities provide guaranteed income streams. Some are employer funded, funded by your employer. Others are purchased. These offer stability, but require understanding payout structures. Social Security is a federal program based on your work history and earnings. And with SSA.gov, you can go in and explore your estimated benefit and eligibility. It's really cool. You log in, you're able to see that. When it comes to these topics, we encourage you to talk with a financial advisor about options with these while working towards your retirement.
Great. Thanks, Jim. I think it's important, kind of summarizing all this when we're thinking about that mid-year checkup. It's not just about the spending plan and where your money is going. It's really thinking about the big picture. Do you have the right coverage in your insurance? Do you have all the insurances that you might need based on your circumstances? Are you investing for your future in the best way that you can? Now that you have some of this foundation to help you with that mid-year checkup, let's talk about some action items and some resources that could benefit. A few action items that we're going to review regularly. This isn't something that you should do once a year. Don't set it and forget about it for the rest of your life. Life is constantly throwing us a curveball and we need to make adjustments. Some adjustments may be short term. Maybe there was a time where you weren't at work, maybe a short-term disability, but it could be long-term. Maybe you've lost a loved one that was supporting those financial choices and goals that you were working towards. Pivot, make some changes, some help, use the expert. Make sure you're regularly updating that budget when you have income changes, new jobs, side jobs, overtime, fill in the blank. There's so many things that are going to impact our budget on a fairly regular basis. Also, review the budget before you make any large purchases or quarterly to ensure that you're on track. Make sure that if you're thinking about purchasing a car or purchasing a house or anything like that, that budget is reviewed. And make sure when you're thinking about those purchases, not how it's just going to affect your income, but how is it going to impact everything along the way. So you have a new car payment. Now you have, maybe higher car insurance. What is all that going to mean for your spending plan? And then again, did I already mention it's really important to adjust and pivot when necessary? Yes. Please be sure to get assistance from the professionals. We can't all be good at everything. Talk to your financial planner about the best way to save and invest. Have an attorney help you review your estate planning. Somebody had put into the chat earlier that they used AI to generate their will and trust and then had the attorney review it from there, save them a ton of money. Again, use the experts when you need to use them. Take advantage of some of the other ways that you might be able to save some of those costs. Also, don't forget about the resources that your financial institutions offer regarding savings and lending opportunities. Consult with them about what is going to help you on your financial journey. And finally, make sure you're being intentional to set aside dedicated time plan, remove distractions, and be sure any financial partner is also invested in that time and they're present to help engage and make sure that you all are on the same page. As far as some of the resources, again, quick reminder, grab those phones. You're going to see the QR codes on the screen that you can click those. But as I mentioned earlier, we do have that worksheets and guides link. If you're looking for that budgeting worksheet or that aligning priorities workbook, it's on our website. You can use this link to get to that. You can download it. We do have an interactive budgeting worksheet that you can use right there. I download it. I find that easier and I can go back and have it. Also, we will be sharing this information with all the registrants from this webinar as well. So you'll get that information in a follow-up email. Additionally, we do have a lot of resources. We have several digital online courses that you could take advantage of at our Learning Lab Plus. It is also available on the website. One of the courses that is on there is making the most of your money. This is ensuring that when you get that extra money, like your bonuses, if you get them, extra side work, tax returns, if you're receiving them, how are you going to use that money to effectively work towards the goals that you're working towards? We also have another course on there, Aligning Priorities. Again, this course is going to help you walk through the workbook that you can get on that worksheet guide and can help you get through that process of ensuring that your priorities are aligned with those goals that you've set and that you're working towards those. Again, take a look at that. Hopefully that will help. For those that are looking for additional content from GreenPath, our next upcoming webinar or a previous webinar, I should say, our next coming webinar is to Pay Later, Plan Smarter, Guide to Buy Now, Pay Later. And we do have previously recorded webinars that you might find helpful. And one of them is building your monthly spending plan. This kind of walks you through it in a little more detail than what I did during the conversation today. If you'd like another set of eyes on your budget or have someone take a closer look at your situation, you are always welcome to reach out to GreenPath Financial Wellness. Again, we are a nonprofit organization. We provide financial counseling and education. The call is free and confidential. Just let us know that you heard about us through this webinar or through the financial institution that connected you to the webinar. You are welcome and encouraged to call us, and our certified counselors can review your credit report. It can help you take a closer look at that spending plan, collaborate to develop an action plan to help you work towards those financial goals that you've hopefully already talked about. GreenPath can also talk about other financial concerns or goals that are related to housing, student loans, as well as options for managing debt. And as I said, it is free and confidential to have these conversations. We are going to open up for some questions. If you have any, please pop them in the chat and we will be sure to get those answered. Jim, do you see any?
All right.
In the chat?
Definitely. Someone asked, can we speak a little bit about opening a Roth IRA outside of an employer program? When it comes to a Roth IRA or even a traditional IRA, you don't have to necessarily do that with your employer. If you go to your financial institution, bank, or credit union, there are other investment firms that you can open an IRA with as well, whether it's Roth or traditional. I always encourage you, go to somebody you trust, word of mouth recommendations, family, friends, talk with people that you know, that you trust, that can send you in the right direction on that. But it is an option. You could have a 401k or even a Roth 401k at your employer and a Roth outside of your employer. Kind of pretty cool. There are limits to contributions, but that is something to keep in mind. Great question there.
Somebody had a question about the best online app to link to their checking account to track budget and save. I would recommend seeing if your financial already has that feature built into your online banking. A lot of them do. If they don't, do you have a recommendation, Jim? Because I don't use an app for my budgeting.
I used to use Mint.com and I don't think it exists anymore. I know there's Mint, there's INAB, INAB, You Need a Budget. I know there are a lot of services out there. Yes, thank you. Mint is now Rocket. Yeah, it is still out there, but personally I use the one through my institution.
I'm old school. I still use pen and paper. My husband would never, ever look at the app. So choose to do it that way so you can both participate. I know one of my colleagues, they use Excel and she constantly finds it crazy that I don't use some type of technology.
Pen and paper spreadsheet. All right. Let's see. Okay. We did have a question about savings bonds. As far as savings bonds go, usually issued by the federal government. Some people use those as a savings tool. They're, pay a certain percentage. And a lot of times they have a maturity, a period of time that they, before they mature and hit their value. The one thing to watch for on that is a case. Sometimes I don't know if this is still true, but I know I've seen it where they've hit maturity and they capped out and they're not earning anymore. Those are some things that you can look at. But yeah, savings bonds are an option for building up savings. Good question there.
There's a question in here about identity theft and impact to their credit score and will it ever recover? Yes, the credit score can recover. Of course, you're going to want to file disputes on anything, including any reports that you made to the police or whomever, to see wherever you placed your file that this happened, to see, talk to the creditors that have been reporting it, file disputes with them as well. But things fall off of the credit reports, and as you're building new credit, as you're responsibly using the existing credit that was truly yours, you're going to be able to work towards building it. But you should file the disputes 100% on anything that's related to fraud or identity theft. But again, you'll need to probably make police reports. That can be difficult based on whoever actually initiated that for some people. And you can put a 100-word statement on your credit report as well. It's not really going to impact your score, but anytime somebody pulls your credit, they would see that 100-word statement to help understand some of the circumstances that they're seeing on the credit report. If somebody's asking about the information that we shared today, we will send a follow-up email. Everybody that registered will get a link to the recording in case you want to watch it again or share it with somebody else, as well as all the resources that we shared. We will include those in that follow-up email too.
Good there. We had somebody point out you could print out bank statements and use the paper to help with putting together your spending plan. I think that's good information.
Somebody's asking about contribution levels. I'm not sure that we're the experts to be able to answer that question. I would definitely refer you back to a financial planner, or your financial institution might have a financial planner on there to be able to answer that question about contribution levels.
Or maybe even a tax, like if you have an accountant,
Yeah.
See what they say on that. I apologize to you there. I'm not in that world yet, my friend. I'm not there yet. But when I get there, I know I'll be asking them. But that's who I would ask. Yeah, good question.
If somebody's asking about a mortgage and applying for a home, especially if you're a low-income family, first, I would definitely say check out down payment assistance programs that might exist in your area. Typically, most places offer them, and there's typically education that is attached to that. It could potentially help you. I would say, you could contact GreenPath for a home buyer education session, or at least a budgeting session, to ensure that you know what you're affordable, what you can actually afford within your spending plan. A lot of times when you go to apply for a mortgage, they're looking at your income solely, your gross income solely, to determine that affordable component. And they may suggest that you can afford something above and beyond because they don't consider you might be paying childcare or other expenditures that aren't showing up on your credit report for your debt obligations. It's important to make sure that you're not overextending yourself. But yeah, there are a lot of down payment assistance programs. And is it focushope.org? Is that the place, Jim? I think I'll send a link into the follow-up email where you can search for those down payment assistance programs based on your zip code. I think it's focushope.org, but I will check that and send that to you.
Yeah, I know there is one, but I don't remember what the right site is. But definitely, especially looking into a mortgage, as a counselor, I would encourage people, hey, let's get credit in line first, because in a mortgage application, credit is a lot of times a yes or a no. Yes, we're moving forward, or no, we're not. So you want to get credit ready. And then while credit is healing, then you're saving for down payment, closing costs, moving expenses, all of that. We had a question about status on homeowners insurance. Okay. On the question on doing what you can to lower that tax bracket, I'm going to tell you, you want to talk to an accountant or financial, like a tax accountant or even a tax attorney that might be able to, to guide you on that. I'm 100% with you. If I owe, I'd much rather give money to a charity than have to pay it in taxes. But that is unfortunately outside of the scope of our expertise, but a tax accountant or tax attorney would be the right person to talk to on that.
Yeah, and don't forget about all the pre-tax withholdings that you can have come out of your payroll for your 401k contributions, your HSA contributions, or FSA contributions. That's going to bring down your adjusted gross. As you're looking at your mid-year financial checkup and you're talking to the tax accountant, determine if one of your goals is to try to put more into those avenues to try to spare some tax obligation from that.
Exactly.
Somebody said that they trying to learn to live without using credit. And credit can be a great thing for some people and it can be their worst nightmare for others. It's learning to be able to use it for the right reasons. And credit isn't necessarily, credit can help us manage a better credit score. Is going to give us better rates if we wanted to buy a house or a car. It can also impact insurance premiums potentially. So you want to really think about having credit isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just making sure that we don't have more credit than what we can manage and that we're only using credit for appropriate purposes and hopefully paying it off every single month if it's revolving credit.
Good point there. Somebody mentioned having savings bonds that we've lost. TreasuryDirect.gov is the resource I would direct you to on that. TreasuryDirect.gov. So sometimes they're electronic, and they'll have an electronic record. Other times, I believe they have you fill out a form. You've lost or bonds have been destroyed. Good question there.
It's a question about the differences between a certified financial wellness expert and a certified financial planner. As far as GreenPath, our counselors are certified financial wellness experts. They're certified by HUD to provide housing-based counseling, and they go through certification with the National Foundation for Credit Counseling to be able to provide counseling on a variety of topics. A financial planner are really working, from what I believe, and Jim, maybe you can answer that part of it, but towards like that investment part of things.
Yeah. And I will tell you, CFP is a certified financial planner is a very, very strong certification. It's not, there are a lot of financial advisors and a lot of stockbrokers, but if they have that CFP designation, it, in my mind, carries a lot of weight.
Yep. And again, they're probably not the people that are going to help you construct your spending plan necessarily. Different roles, but can support you and your overall financial health for sure. Both parties can.
Let me see. The question about debt consolidation. Lots of options with debt consolidation. I would encourage you if there is that debt, maybe you look at your options with your financial institution. Can we do a home equity loan? Can we do a car title loan? Maybe a credit card balance transfer, maybe a signature loan or personal loan. There are options with that. There's pros and cons with each of those. But that is something you can look into.
Yeah, and we are not fiduciaries here. There's a question about that.
Yep, good question.
Yeah, somebody mentioned they cut their cell phone carrier, changed that to lower their bill in half. It's looking at all those little things. You just do things because it's habit and you don't think about it. The bill comes, you pay the bill. You don't really think about it. A story that I had was, I didn't realize my trash bill. I pay for trash service where I live, and it was going up every single quarter for like a year, and it jumped from like $100 a quarter in just over 1 year. And I was looking back at what I had been paying. And I was like, oh my goodness, why is it jumping so dramatically? I switched services, and now I'm paying significantly less. Even though it's not a ton of money, it all adds up when you have that plus your cell phone, your cable or direct TV, all of these things add up to a lot.
I will say with that, when I was using Mint, which is now Rocket, but those kind of apps, a lot of times they'll catch that. I had a certain budget for entertainment, and it was a regular bill. It was cable, internet, cable and internet, Netflix and all that. And one of those jumped up their price, and I got a notification from the app that said, hey, your entertainment budget was out. You spent more than you'd planned. And then I went back and, they jumped it up. I didn't even notice it, but the app caught it and told me about that. We had a question about the government health insurance website. I'm thinking healthcare.gov is what you're looking for there.
Yeah. Somebody asked about having a lot of open lines of credit, but no carried debt on that. And how do they know to close the accounts to remove availability? I think a lot of it is the timing of it. Like, if you want to close some of them, I would do it before you're planning to make any major purchases. I would try to keep the oldest ones open because they're going to give you the most value to your credit score. And I would try to make sure that you aren't closing all the major credit cards. Like if you have a bunch of retail cards, those are the ones to probably close. Try to keep something that's a major Visa, MasterCard accessible for that credit building purposes. And, to have the credit, it's probably good to keep consistently showing that usage and paying on time is just randomly charge something once a month and pay the bill off every single month so that you have that consistent activity.
Yeah, I agree. I've had this discussion with one of my friends at the credit union about, I've got all these credit cards. Should I close them all at once or should I close one every 3 to 6 months? And there's pros and cons with each of those. Personally, I try not to close any of the accounts that I have, but I will lock them or freeze them if I don't plan on using them. And eventually the creditor will close them.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's been one of them, I think it went 12 years before they closed it with no activity.
Yeah, that's the thing. Another reason, if you're going to limit your credit cards down to just one or two, you're going to want to make sure you again use it randomly, or they will, for inactivity, close them, and then you'll have no credit.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, so much for joining us today. Hopefully, everybody is walking away with some new information or new ideas. Please, please, please use this to do that financial checkup. Spend that intentional time, connect with your financial partner, take a look at your situation, make sure everybody's on the same page, and that you have a plan to move forward. So everyone, have a wonderful day today.